What's up, y'all? We're back with Tackle Warehouse First Look Live at ICAST. We're here in the Daiwa booth with Tackle Warehouse Pro staffer Brent Ehrler. Brent, thanks for joining us today. We're here to talk about some new reels and some new pretty fresh lids. You're a guy that likes a sharp hat.
I do.
We'll get to that in just a second, but first, we've got 3 great new reels from Daiwa to talk about. Let's start off with a spinning reel.
Okay.
What's going on here?
Okay, so this is the Ballistic, and what they've done is they've changed it. Now this is the Ballistic MQ. So MQ is monocoque, which is the actual frame for this reel. It's similar to the same frame that we've done on the Exist in the past, but they did it in the Ballistic model. So what's unique about that is it's very light and it's very, very strong and very rigid. So there's no flexing. But the good part about that is you can actually put bigger gears in the reel because of that framing. The bigger gears help for actually turning. It has that same 6 gear ratio to it, but a lot of the 6 gear ratios, it's hard to turn because they actually have smaller gears. This has a bigger gear, smoother, for actually reeling, easier to reel. The other neat thing is mag seal. Mag seal is very good. It helps the longevity of a reel for any kind of intrusion in there. Even fresh water, doesn't matter, you can use it in salt water. Anytime you get stuff inside that reel, that's what destroys the reel. So changing the frame, mag seal, that's the new Ballistic MQ.
Anyone who's ever dropped their spinning reel in the sand knows it can be a problem.
Correct.
And that mag seal, if you guys haven't actually seen it, it's a magnetic oil,
it's
isn't
unbelievable,
it? It's
yeah.
wild.
And actually, the other thing I forgot too is it's actually, the spool is supported by 2 bearings. So it's a very rigid spool. The spool doesn't rock. So there's a lot of things in this tiny little reel, and it's still ultra light because of that monocoque frame. So it's pretty impressive.
Sure. So if you go back 20 years, bait casting reels caught up with the drop gearbox, allowing us to fit bigger gears in there. And now spinning reels are catching up, so you have that torque at higher speeds.
That's true.
That's awesome.
Yeah, very true.
So check that out. That's the new Ballistic, right?
Ballistic MQ. The MQ stands for monocoque. So Ballistic MQ is brand new this year.
Awesome. Hey, this is just one of the best sellers. The Ballistic has been one of the best sellers, most popular ones.
It's a good model.
Great new option available from Daiwa. Check them out. They're available for pre-order on tacklewarehouse.com. Up next, we have a cool little casting reel. Tell us about this.
Yeah, really. The Steez reel has kind of been a flagship reel for Daiwa for a number of years. I mean, I don't care who you are. Most likely you've heard of the Steez line. It's the cream of the crop when it comes to any kind of bait casting reel, spinning reels. They have come out with a brand new Steez 70, and that 70 refers to the size of the reel. So it's a very, very slim, low profile reel. SV spool is great for casting smaller, lighter baits, but typically what happens in some of the JDM products that Daiwa has is when they get to a real small body like this, everything's downsized. The handle, the knob is downsized. This one is not. This is designed for the US market. 90 millimeter handle, bigger knobs for the guys out here that power fish more. You might flip and pitch with this reel. It's so light. The hyperdrive gearing in this thing, basically what the hyperdrive is that you have finer teeth on the gearing in there. Now, like you said, with the drop down gearing, you can run a bigger gear. They're finer teeth in those gears, which is better for durability, but the smoothness of this reel. You get those fine tooth gears in there, and it is unbelievable how smooth this thing, casting, reeling. When you're winding this thing in, there's no grindy feel to it. You're not feeling vibration in that reel. Everything you're feeling is that direct contact into your bait trying to catch those fish, and that's the Steez 70.
That's really cool. Have these very small size reels changed your fishing in maybe being able to throw something on casting gear that you couldn't?
When it comes to the SV spool is the best thing you can run if you're skipping. Yeah. Anytime you're going to skip something, if you're throwing a really light bait, I do like it for throwing a really light bait. But surprisingly, I'm liking these smaller reels for flipping and pitching, because when you're active like that, when you think about a flip and a pitch, your movement is constant. It's drop it in, hop it once or twice, reel it, drop it again. You're constantly going around. When you drop the weight, you basically decrease fatigue. So by the end of the day, I think that it's easier to fish. You can fish longer and not have any fatigue by having a lighter reel like that. So
you're going the opposite direction than I was
kind of
thinking.
am. I'm using it for a lot of power fishing, but yes, SV, you know, casting smaller baits, skipping baits, that's where it truly shines. I like it, like I said, for power fishing. I will use that reel and flip and pitch with it because it's lighter, and I feel like I can flip and pitch easier and be moving. I mean, when you're doing that, it's a constant movement. It's not a cast and lift, and you know, it's a constant movement. For me, it is. So.
And efficiency is king when you're
correct.
doing that.
It is. Those smaller reels are
the most number of presentations.
I
do, before we move on from this new flagship reel from Daiwa, I do want to, you touched on SV, but really, if you haven't experienced an SV reel, you can't understand the way it's going to really impact, especially your lightweight bait casting.
Yeah, so if you think about it if you take a spool that has a lot of line in it, a traditional spool, when you put backing on that spool plus your line, you're adding weight to that spool. So if you think about it on a physics sense, when that spool is spinning, there's a lot of weight and inertia behind that spool, which means that you backlash easier with a bait that slows down faster. So a lighter bait or skipping, you go to skip it and the bait digs a little bit, that spool is acting like it's a big full cast. The heavier that spool is, the more overrun you're gonna have because the centrifugal force of that heavier spool. An SV spool is a shallow spool. You have less material in there, less line, less weight. You don't have the inertia to overrun on a cast and a backlash. So that's why it's great for smaller, lighter baits as well as skipping. That's basically the design of an SV spool.
So. Really cool, and that technology has been brought down not just from the Pinnacle reel all the way down to the Tatula SV now.
Correct.
So you're able to get that at a really competitive price point.
For sure. The other thing too that's amazing about this reel, for how small it is, a 70 size, it still has the T-wing system that's really the best design to a bait casting reel that I have ever seen in the history of reels. You know, to come out with something like that, they have it in that tiny little frame.
Yeah. And I do want to talk about the T-wing technology a little bit because it's not brain surgery.
It's not.
It's about reducing the angle of your line from your spool to your line guide on your reel, and less angle means less friction.
Correct.
Means longer and better casting.
True. Surface area. Surface area is the whole key on the T-wing system. You think about a small little level wind and their line trying to fit through that at a rapid pace when you make a cast. The more that line touches that inner ring of that level wind, it adds friction, slows down the line. When it slows down the line, guess what? It's backfilling on that reel and you get a backlash. With a T-wing system, when it folds forward, it opens up that level wind, less friction, more surface area, which means that you have less line touching that T-wing as it's going out, and it allows that line to flow through there without getting backed up. Fewer backlashes. That's the whole design of the T-wing system. And longer casting as well.
Really awesome. All that technology is packed into the new Steez CT SV TW70. That's a mouthful, Brent.
I know, really.
But it's there and it's available for pre-order on tacklewarehouse.com. Check that out now. We're going from a very small reel.
I know, we're going the polar opposite.
Something a little bigger and a little beefier. Tell us about this guy.
So, the big bait guys, the swim bait guys are really going to like this, the Tatula 300. I'm going to use this reel for throwing a big bait, a big swim bait, but I'm also going to use it for some of the saltwater fishing I do. I live in Southern California. I get out, I fish a lot of the coastal stuff. I'm telling you, it is an absolute blast catching calicos, sand bass, even small tuna. And I haven't used the 300 for catching tuna. I've used the 400 a bunch for catching tuna, and I've caught them up to almost 80 pounds on the 400 and haven't had a problem with the drag or anything. I'm still using one of the older models and going crazy with it. But the 300 is going to be a great big bait reel. The one thing I like about this, it's an 8 gear ratio. So if you think about a very deep spool, which is what we have on these bigger reels, especially for those big bait guys, when you're throwing a 20, 25 pound test, and making these long bombs with a several ounce bait to get it out there. When you get that bait all the way out there and you're running down farther in the spool, when you're winding this thing in with a smaller gear ratio reel and getting down to the bottom of that spool, when you're turning that thing, it's bringing in that much line, if you think about it. But this is an 8 gear ratio, so now you're gonna have that speed. So if you get a bite way out there, you have that speed and that torque to actually get a good hookup ratio with that fish.
You know, that's a great point. With higher diameter lines, you're gonna be casting further into the spool, and Brent put it perfectly, really gear ratio plus spool diameter is going to be your inches per turn that you're able to retrieve, and this higher gear ratio is going to make sure that you're able to pick up line even at the end of a long cast.
Even at the end of a long cast,
That's
where you have that small, spool base right there that line is attached to. The farther the cast, the less line you're taking in per turn.
Sure.
When the farther it is out there. So with that 8 gear ratio, you still have that torque and that speed to get a good hook set on those fish.
Great point. I love the big paddles on this thing.
Yeah, big handle, big paddles. Yeah.
Gives you a lot of meat to grip on there, and you know, this thing just feels bulletproof. Can't wait to get that out. Hey, if you catch a big tuna, big bluefin down, we better see a picture of that thing.
I'm going to try and get my hands on. I want to see how big of a tuna I can catch on how small of a reel. So
that would be a great
300
that
would
be a great testament to how bulletproof this reel is. Again, this is the Daiwa Tatula 300. It's available for pre-order now on tacklewarehouse.com. Check that out. That's it for reels, Brent.
Yep.
But we do have some lifestyle apparel items.
Yep.
Let's go check those out. They're right over here. So we got some new hats. We got some wild hat designs. What's going on here?
So basically we've come out with a lot of different apparel, hats included. You know, I guess we start at the top. Actually a big straw hat with the DVEC on the front. Now this is gonna be the one that I'm gonna throw on when I go out in the pontoon. You know, this is one I'm gonna kind of relax and hang out. I probably wouldn't fish in that thing, but guess what? You can still show your DVEC and Daiwa colors by having that, you know, that DVEC on the front.
Brent, I have no pride, and I'm not a very serious person. I fish in one of these all the time.
Perfect.
And really, you know, I mean, there has been guys like Shaw have brought a little attention to sun protection. Yeah. And you know, I've got a little skin cancer in my family. I make sure that I'm covering up, and the hat really makes sure I'm keeping the sun off my head. I don't know if it's the most stylish thing in the world, but man,
I like
it is. Am I looking good?
It looks good.
Where's my umbrella drink?
All right. I know, we need a fruity drink somewhere.
I know. Well, we got some, it seems like as we go down the list, it's getting more into the Brent Ehrler zone. But,
exactly. Aside from this one we should put on top. So we got some trucker hats, you know, the mesh back. This one has the Tatula spider on it. But a couple other trucker hats with the DVEC on it, different colors. Again, mesh back. The one thing I really like about the mesh back is, you know, if you wear a hat for a while, it starts stinking really bad. Those mesh back let that thing vent and they don't stink. They don't show the wear and tear like some of the other hats do. So snap back, vented hats. We have some different colors, some blues, some pinks. Now we're getting down, you know, to the more flat bill stuff that I like. My favorite right here, I've always liked just a straight black. I love the black on black, the DVEC. The black DVEC on the black hat. I'm also liking this green one. This is a fresh one that we haven't seen yet. We got this cool kind of army green DVEC flat bill. And man, I love a flat bill.
You know, I know a certain Daiwa sales manager that I know has already picked himself up one of these. That is a snazzy looking hat.
It is a good looking hat.
I know we'll see you in one of these too, Brent.
100%.
Brent, thanks so much for taking us through all these great new hats.
You bet.
I'm excited about this one. I'm going to walk off with it.
I like it.
Also, those new reels, really cool. The Steez, the new Ballistic spinning reel, and that big 300 Tatula.
Always good stuff. And the other thing is that Daiwa won. I'm sure you've probably already talked about this, but I haven't talked about it. They won best in reels for saltwater and freshwater. The Steez SV.
Yeah.
And then for saltwater, they did the Saltiga or the Saltist MQ. I don't remember which reel it was, but a spinning reel. Best reel and show for salt and fresh. Daiwa accomplished that this year, which is awesome. So
yeah, congratulations
really cool
to Daiwa for that. Guys, thanks for joining us. taking us through all these great new products. This has been Tackle Warehouse First Look live at ICAST with Tackle Warehouse Pro staffer Brent Ehrler.
Yeah.
Brent, thanks so much for joining us.
Appreciate it.
And we'll see you guys next time.
Thank you.